Hey folks, we're back, and right now we are going to talk about suspension polymerization. Honestly, this is just a modified bulk polymerization. But it has some very nice alternatives. So, in a suspension polymerization, what you have is your reaction flask, which is being stirred like hell. My God, is this being stirred? And what makes up the bulk of what's in there is a non-solvent. Now, there is a fancy science word for non-solvent that starts with a D. I honestly cannot remember what it is. I apologize. Obviously, for this to be a polymerization in there, you also need to have monomer. By stirring the ever-loving shit out of this, what you have is monomer droplets. Monomer droplets that are suspended, thus the suspension's polymerization, in the non-solvent. Now, these droplets can be between 10 and 1,000 micrometers in size. Now, into this polymerization, you are going to add, I hope this shows up okay. That yellow is not showing up at all. Let me do a different color. Let's do green. I think that will show up okay. Initiator, which we are going to represent as a dot, because these are only free radical polymerizations. All right? So, bearing that in mind, what we're going to do is I'm going to turn the page, and we're going to redraw that picture really quick. So, you probably don't have to, but I do. So, we got our reaction flask, our non-solvent, the stirrer, and these droplets of monomer. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to blow one of these droplets up so we can get a better view of what's inside. Ladies and gentlemen, the worst circle I've ever drawn in my life. You should be happy. So we've got monomer, 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 monomer. You get the idea. Shut up, Wiggle. It's getting old. And we also have our initiator in there. Our initiator has also wandered inside of that droplet. Why is that important? Well, with your initiator there, what you can do is initiator plus monomer goes to here, plus monomer goes to here. You get the idea. So every one of these droplets is a miniature bulk polymerization. It's a miniature bulk polymerization. And again, it's controlled by droplet size, which we talked about earlier in the previous page. Okay, we'll get to droplet size in just a minute. The biggest advantage to this polymerization methodology is this. The non-solvent, which most often is water is a fantastic heat sink. Meaning all of the energy that's going on from the hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, if not millions, of small droplet bulk polymerization reactors, all that energy is bled off into the water, and the water could honestly care less. Fine, just give it to me, it's all right. So, this is how this turns out. And it works really well, because what you get out the other side of it is polymer beads. Literally little spheres of polymer. The advantage to this is polymer beads have a really good transportability. Now, that's not fancy science. I mean, literally, you can put it in a bag and carry it from one spot to another. When we talk about processing and things you make out of polymers, you'll see why that's a big advantage. So, what polymers can we use through suspension polymerization? Well, the polymers that we can make here are polyvinyl chloride, or PVC, polystyrene, and your friend and mine, polymethyl methacrylate. Or PMMA. These are all things that you can do through this sort of polymerization. Finally, the last thing I want to say here is, I'm going to go back a page for it. These polymer beads are typically between, where did I write that down? 100 to 5,000 nanometers. 100 to 5,000 nanometers. All right. So, if you're wondering, how do we control droplet size? Surely to Betsy, there is some way we can control the droplet size in this. There is, actually. It's not simple, but there is. So I'm going to give you this equation. Average droplet size. Average droplet size is equal to K times, and this is a long one, folks, dV times R times tau m times epsilon divided by ds times n times v sub l times c sub s. More on that c sub s in just a second. What do these values stand for? Well, d sub v is the reaction vessel diameter. How big your reaction vessel literally is. D sub s is the stirrer diameter. R is the volume ratio of monomer to water, or your non-solvent. All right, let's keep going here. N is your stirring speed. V sub m and V sub I are the viscosity of both your monomer and your water, or non-solvent. E, that little epsilon there, is the interfacial tension. Between the monomer and the water. And finally, C sub S is the concentration of stabilizer. I didn't really tell you much about that because it's only needed in a few cases. The stabilizer is there to make the particles, make those droplets stay together better. Now, finally, K is a reaction constant. Because fuck you, that's why. We always have to put in the reaction constant, which is the thing that we don't really understand. Am I ever going to expect you to be able to use this equation for anything? No. Then why did I show it to you? I wanted you to see that it is actually fairly complicated to do a suspension polymerization and try to get your diameter size of your bead, which directly correlates to the size and volume of your polymer bead that you get out of this. It's not an easy chore. Nothing about this is easy. I want to wrap up this video with one more thing, and that is reverse phase suspension polymerization. In reverse phase suspension polymerization works exactly the same, except your non-solvent, your suspended solvent here, is a hydrocarbon, and your beads are water and monomer. They're not typically done. I can't think of a single good example that uses them, but I wanted to point them out to you to make sure you knew they were there. One last thought. I don't think I'm out of time yet. I'm getting really close, though. Final thought. This only works with free radical polymerization. Why? Cations, anions, and catalysts will react with the water before they do any polymerizations. Free radicals are the only ones you can do here. All right, folks, that's all I got for now. Tune in next time when we talk about emulsion polymerizations. Stay cool.